let's just consider that Gary McKinnon hacked into NASA and found a spreadsheet that listed the names of all of the off-world fleet vessels along with the names of the respective captains. So that's off-world right there. We're finding out that there's been off-world activity for quite some time. The information that I disclosed about the South Pole Station and the technologies existing there indicates that there is a capacity for faster than light communications, which would make perfectly good sense. If we had an off-world fleet moving around the cosmos, we would assuredly need at least one way to communicate with them. And I believe that I provided information to indicate that I found at least two methods for long-range communications into the cosmos.
A Kodega is a guide and a storyteller, escorting you through the night, lighting the way, warding off thieves, ghosts, demons, and other oddities. Along the journey, his companions would often share with him the most curious of stories that he'd record in his codex. Perhaps you just might find yourself traveling with a Kodega and sharing one of yours. Click that like.
Yeah!
If you're new here, subscribe and have the bell hit for notifications to stay up to date on all of the new content. Let's journey back to 1947, a year shrouded in post-war secrets and Cold War tensions. Picture this: Admiral Richard Byrd, a decorated American explorer, leading an armada of 4,000 troops, warships, and, and aircraft to the icy wilderness of Antarctica. The official story? A simple training exercise. But let's dig a little bit deeper. And that's where you'll find whispers of something far more sinister: a secret mission to uncover hidden Nazi bases, encounters with otherworldly UFOs, or possibly a race to discover a passage beneath the ice that could lead to an ancient hollow realm within the Earth's core. Was Operation High Jump merely an exercise in cold weather survival, or was it a covert operation that unearthed secrets too dangerous to reveal? I'm Rye, the Kodega, and this is Kodega's Codex of Curiosities, where we dive deep into the unexplained and the unbelievable. Tonight, I'm thrilled to introduce a guest who's no stranger to the world of hidden truths and mind-blowing revelations, Eric Hecker. Eric is a former Navy serviceman and a contractor for Raytheon, one of the largest defense contractors in the U.S. His position as a firefighter and plumber at the South Pole facility gave him unrestricted access to areas most only can dream of. But it's what he discovered during his time there that will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew, from highly advanced directed energy weapons to technologies far beyond our imagination. Eric witnessed it all. Yet, he has courageously testified before Congress, shedding light on what he believes is a matter of global importance, with a background that includes growing up near the infamous Montauk Project and involvement in the CIA's Stargate project. Eric's life has been anything but ordinary. His experiences had led him on a path of intense research and discovery, culminating in his mission to reveal the truth to the world. Eric is here to take us through his incredible journey from the icy expanses of Antarctica to the remote wilderness of Alaska, connecting the dots of technologies and operations that have been hidden in plain sight, which is what we always talk about. Prepare to have your mind expanded as we explore the unknown with a man who has seen it firsthand. Welcome to Kodega's Codex of Curiosities, Eric. I'm glad to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me, Ryan. I really appreciate you taking the time and interest in this topic.
No, fantastic. I any type of these topics are something I find absolutely fascinating and just interesting. Whenever something is hidden from us, it makes me want to dig deeper. It makes me want to go further, and to know more. It's like, why is this being hidden from us, and for what reasons as well? So for those who don't know, well, I gave a bit of an introduction for you, but if there's anything you want to add to that, or where they can find you as well, that'd be fantastic.
Oh, you got it. Thank you so much. I guess I'll start with, if people want to find out more information, they can absolutely jump on my website, deciphering.tv, and I'm doing my best to get the information as I know it out on that platform. But just to preface this conversation, I bastardize quotes from people all the time, but I try to do my best. Mark Twain once said that it's a sign of higher intellect for people to consider a topic that they do not yet even support. So that's what I'm trying to get people to do with my information, because I can appreciate that it's a bit complex, oftentimes over people's heads. So you do not have to support what I'm saying yet, and I get that. But please consider the implications, I guess, of this information that I'm putting out there, because I absolutely do believe it's of dire importance for the people of this planet.
I could not agree more with you too, and I think that's a fantastic quote by Mark Twain. In using that as well, that's something that I think is really important. That we should always be open to listening and to hearing things that maybe we have no idea about, or maybe don't even believe in. And it's we should always be open to that, and we should always be the, like I say, we should always be the arbiters of our own truth as well. We should be the gateman, and not let others tell us what to think or to believe, but to take it all in and to make that decision for ourselves. Awesome. So, a plumber, and I find that awesome, because I was just talking earlier. I say, plumbing takes some people around the world, and I find that that's amazing. It's a very useful trade, and I find plumbers to be very ingenuitive. We have a lot of ingenuity, sorry, ingenuity when it comes to solving problems as well. It always seems to be something. Now, what I have a question though. What led you to work at the South Pole? Like, what brought you there, and what were your expectations before getting there as well?
I guess technically my answer would be the Obama administration tanking the entire economy of Long Island. So at the time, it was just, quite frankly, the only institution on the face of the earth that was willing to cut me a check. So I just went in the direction of where the money was at the time. In hindsight, I question whether that was like a manufacturing of a lack of options to get me there. So yeah, it's just, it's one of those things where in hindsight, it's starting to seem a little bit clearer that that might be the case, that,
That
someone
you
wanted me
were
there.
someone wanted you there. That is interesting. Now, why would someone want you there? Why did you end up there? Was that, as to have you open your eyes to what something else, or what was the purpose of that, do you believe?
I guess if I had to guess, and it's a complete guess,
Of
is
course, of
that
course.
I think that there is a guiding hand in my life that
Mhm.
certainly wants me to see certain things, and there was certainly plenty for me to absorb. Spending
Yeah.
a year at the South Pole Station in Antarctica was certainly very eye-opening.
I, I could only imagine. Now when you were there, when did things start seem or feel to be a little bit different? When was it that you realized that, like, of course you're not in Kansas anymore,
Mhm.
uh, but when was it that things started happening, or you started seeing things that were out of the ordinary, that shouldn't be in the South Pole or shouldn't be in Antarctica?
Great question, and I guess the answer to that would be that the first time that I had a I guess, clear evidence. I mean, I had suspicions from the onset, just being hired by Raytheon to go to the South
Mm,
Pole, being their, a military industrial contractor, and there's certainly plenty of other contractors on the planet that provide such services without having to be dabbling so hardly in the weapons industry. But with that being said, it basically boiled down to one day there was a pump that had to be replaced, and you'll appreciate this. I get a lot of heat on this specific topic because there was a pump that I had to replace, which, as I'm sure pumps have electrical power to them.
yeah.
So I had to isolate the circuit to the pump to facilitate the replacement. And a lot of people freak out and go, "How dare you say you did this? No plumbers do electrical work." And this is one of the, like, I mean, this is literally one of the most standard repairs that a plumber deals with that involves electricity. I mean, that's it. Just is what it is. So I
Yeah,
had
like
to go
we're
ahead.
not going to call an electrician to turn off the power to a pump.
Right.
For those of my viewers and listeners who don't know, I was a plumber by trade for over 13 years. It's kind of like a family business as well, and electricity, you end up doing a lot of electrical work as a plumber. It just goes that way.
Yeah, and carpentry work and sheetrock work and
Uh,
everything under the sun. Plumbers do everything.
yes,
A lot of
yes,
people
and
don't
yes.
realize that. But in this situation, I had to trace back the circuit to isolate it to do the pump swap.
Yeah.
In that process, when I got to the panel, there was some confusion because things weren't exactly how they were labeled. There was some circuits. There was a circuit that was on that was supposed to be off, and so now I had to double check because heaven forbid I'm isolating the wrong circuit. That's all. So just doing due diligence to figure stuff out.
Yeah.
In that process, I learned that the circuit that was on but labeled off was the ELF system, which is the extreme low frequency system that we were told was non operational. And we were told that with great clarity, and I'm very familiar with such systems, having spent some time in the submarine service. So it was at that point in time that I knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that we were being lied to, and there's some serious technology that is operating that we were being deceived about.
Okay, interesting. And can you describe like what would the ELF be for? Like for myself, I don't know. I am a plumber, but
Yeah,
I know a lot, but I don't know that.
standard benign stuff would just be like top secret communications around the planet to communicate
Okay.
with submarines and such. But then now the list grows when we start looking into what are referred to as directed energy weapon systems. We have to start considering what all of the other possibilities are. And those are very manifold. Directed energy weapons are a very complex topic because, unlike other weapons, where like you think of a gun, you pull the trigger, a
Yeah.
bullet comes out, it's a particular caliber, it does one thing. Directed energy weapons seem to be a lot more complex than that because, as a standalone system, they have a tendency to be able to do at least a few things. And then when you start combining these systems with other systems, things get even more complex and wild. So this is where I'm coming into the conversation of trying to get people to consider the topic of directed energy weapons and all the complexities that come with it. I don't want to pretend to be an expert on the topic, but I'm trying to become one so that I can hopefully get the rest of the population to start absorbing this information. Directed energy weapons, if people are familiar with HARP, it's been around for quite a few decades. These are the things that people are discussing that are manipulating the weather, up to and including causing earthquakes, voice to skull technology.
Mm-hmm.
All of these things we have to put on the table. A lot of people discuss the term Occam's razor quite regularly, and I think most people have no idea that they're getting it wrong. Most people use the term Occam's razor in regards to, the least complex answer, the simplest answer is most likely the solution. And that's
Mm-hmm.
garbage. I mean, I don't know where in our reality the easiest answer is most likely the solution. I find life is a lot more complex than that. And what Occam's razor is actually getting at, it basically means that you have to put all possibility that exists on the table of consideration. And then applying the razor, the proverbial Occam's razor, you take off a slice of that possibility and then you observe it. If you can negate that, then you can remove it from the table of possibility. But if you
Okay. Yeah.
cannot negate it, you have to consider it. So this is what I'm challenging people to do is, since all this information is available, the patents, all the technologies for many decades, we have to leave this stuff on the table of possibility for nefarious people to be wielding because we can't negate it.
I agree. I totally agree. Like There are a lot of patents out there. There are I've dove into that a little bit myself. When they're talking about mind, like brainwashing and mind control like using your TV for that. So I find that absolutely really interesting, and it's really interesting. So with these do, as they're called, directed energy weapons, when did you start? Was there something that was like, I know you said there was this low frequency on the panel that was on, that they strictly said no, it's off. Now, was there more technologies that you ended up starting to stumble on? Being in the mechanical side, you get to explore the underbelly of this station. What did you start to discover that was becoming more and more of an eye opener to you?
I guess when I was present at the facility, it wasn't so much a discovery at that time as much as
Okay.
it was absorption of information and observation.
Yeah.
And then through the years, after my time at South Pole Station, would be more when I started to connect the dots and figure out what had actually transpired and what was going on. So yeah, it's taken quite a bit to get through this, and I would accredit that to the wonderful function of a secreting tactic known as compartmentalization of information. It is such a profound and prevalent tactic through these factions, and it's very challenging to get people to have an appreciation of how this works. But
Mhm.
it just is what it is. Everybody thinks that there's no such thing as a conspiracy, but then why would we have such a word in the dictionary?
True,
I
true.
mean, there's a reason we have this word, and it's
Yeah.
obvious that if people weren't conspiring, the world would be amazing and everybody would know what's going on. But since the world isn't amazing and nobody seems to know what the hell is going on, I mean, to me, that's the proof in the pudding that there's some conspiracy going on against the general population of this planet.
I could not agree more. There's and that's why we are here, because there's too many loose ends, and this oh my gosh, compartmentalization, is so evident, and people don't understand. They're like, well, there's too many people. How would they would know that this is? I'm like, if we go back to the Manhattan Project, I believe there was over
Mhm.
100,000 people that worked on that, and
More.
it was so
Yeah.
only like a couple of them knew what it was actually for.
And the
Like,
Soviet side of that program in the same time period had entire cities that were secreted away and people didn't know. Yeah, I mean, just that statement itself can't be proven. The people that say, "Oh, if that was going on and all these people knew, then we would know." That statement can't be proven. The history has shown that statement to be erroneous.
yes, I agree. Lack of evidence is not,
Hmm.
not proof that it doesn't exist. It's
Hmm.
also, it's just proof that there's lack of evidence. It doesn't mean that it's not there.
Yeah, the F-117 stealth
Mhm.
fighter has been operational since the 1970s. That means a lot of people knew about it, but it was secreted away until the first Gulf War, when the general public became aware of it, and that was in what, the 1990s.
Yeah, yeah, the
So we had
90s.
we had we had decades of tons of people that knew, but
Hmm.
compartmentalization of information and a need to know basis kept the general population in the dark. So I mean, how many decades were people saying that they observed UFO activity, but it was just simply an F-117?
That is a fantastic example, and I still refer to the UFO because it is still an unidentified flying object,
Hmm.
but there's credence to that there is that it's ours, like it
Oh,
is it
totally.
is the US government. So,
Hmm.
like people are seeing UFOs, but it's not otherworldly. It's your government's
Yeah, that's
classified
that's what I'm coming to realize, and in the circles that I run in, I find the people that are more believable are of that opinion, and the people that are of the other opinion are simply feds that are just trying to, protect themselves from the activities that they've been involved in for the last 4 or 5 decades. I'm not against the idea that there is some either, let's just say off-world species, in-world species with high technology that maybe up to and including abductions, that type of stuff. I mean, I'm not opposed to the possibility because we can't negate it. But I
Yes.
believe what the statistics are showing us that people need to consider is that the vast majority of observations, interactions, technologies, whatever you want to call it, the vast majority of them are man made.
Yeah.
They've been around for a while, and these
Understandable.
factions have simply just monopolized this technology for their own benefit. And the plausible deniability that they benefit from is by keeping people in the dark and thoroughly convincing them that it's some other off-world activity that they have no idea if that could be true or not, and like as if they're going to start looking into it now you know um,
Yeah. Do you
the
think that's a
parameters.
diversion?
Oh,
Do
it's a
you think
total.
that is a yeah?
I know it's a diversion. These people basically came out of the woodwork really hard after my June 2023 testimony in Washington, D.C., and with Dr. Greer's Disclosure 2.0 event, because we were basically coming out hammering down saying, this is us. We're the
Yeah.
ones doing it. There are rogue factions at the very least within the United States government that are operating without oversight from the American government and therefore the American people. And it's to the benefit of these people to keep confusing everybody on the statistics, to make them think that it's something else, not us. This is
Yeah.
to their benefit because simply just flipping that switch changes this whole conversation.
Hmm.
If people, if
I
the
agree.
factions came out and admitted to possessing these technologies for the last 4 or 5 decades, who's liable? How upset would the mob be knowing that we've had technology available that would have freed the world from the problems of energy, um, and just even on the simpler side, right? Here's one of the main reasons that we don't get rapid travel, because they want you to stay in your house and pay a mortgage. They don't want you to know that you can go to Paris for dinner and be
Mhm.
home before bedtime. I mean, heaven forbid we, the people of this planet, could intermingle at a rate that they couldn't control. And if people think that that's a load of malarkey, well, just look at who currently controls how fast commercial airplanes can fly. And that would be the FAA.
Yeah.
They actually cap the maximum speed that commercial air traffic can travel by. Why is that? If the technology, you're telling me that airplanes haven't advanced in what, damn near 100 years now. Commercial flight is pretty much locked down. We can't get 50% faster planes. We can't get 100% too. I mean, where'd the Concorde go?
I,
You telling me we can't have
I was
cost effective Concorde flight or something twice as fast? I mean, it's just not possible. Well, it is not possible, but there's a reason why it's not possible. It's because the FAA regulates that max speed. They don't
it,
want us traveling too quickly.
it's
How
all about
come?
that. It's all about that control. It's all about
Mm-hmm.
controlling us, because once they have that control, once they lose that control, then what?
Mm-hmm.
And you were saying, like, I will say that I do believe in otherworldly travel,
Mm-hmm.
or something from this planet as well that does exist. But
Mm-hmm.
as soon as the government disclosure came on, anybody who's on this side, who is a, we'll say, a realist or real believer or a conspiracy theorist, then starts to question. Okay, so as soon as the government starts saying, okay, yes, yes, we have UFOs, we've seen UFOs, as soon as that happens, like for myself, I started saying, okay, what's going on? Why are they releasing this? And like you said, it was to try to control this directional flow to, like, oh, this isn't ours, this is somebody else's, kind of thing. So
Mm-hmm.
again, it's all about controlling the narrative. And they put in bad actors. It doesn't matter what kind of organization or group you're with. The best way to control those ones is to get your bad actors into there, and then like facilitate the control, facilitate the direction yourself. There's been so many fantastic groups and organizations that have come up, but they've all been taken over and are under some sort of control, and they start going crazier, and they start doing these crazy things, and then the people who do follow them and believe those kind of malarkey, it discredits everything else that's in there, because
Hmm.
it's just, oh, there's a bunch of lunatics, there's a bunch of crazy people, they believe this or they believe that. It's
Hmm.
it's kind of nuts.
Yeah, they recently just had what I would refer to as the Corey Good operation. This was, for a short time period, I would say back in 2014, 2015, there were, I guess you would say, conventions going on under the title of the Secret Space Program. And there's perfectly good researchers involved, and they were bringing real facts to light. And I think that was problematic for these rogue factions operating without oversight. And then all of a sudden, they started to invest heartily in muddying the waters on this topic, and they sent us guys like Corey Good to, get everybody on the bandwagon and rally up all the troops, so to say, but then to basically throw a nuclear bomb on his lap to show him to be the charlatan that he is.
Yeah.
But then that discredited the entire conversation, and
Yeah.
that's why I would call it was the Corey Good operation. They did that job perfectly. They made sure that they got enough people paying attention to him, and then when it seemed like he was kind of the head of the conversation, they nuked him.
Yeah.
It was a tactical operation to discredit a conversation.
Yeah, I've seen it countless times with countless organizations, countless groups. You can see it. You can see when it takes control and it starts going off rails, and it
Mhm.
starts going down a direction that is completely irrelevant and
Mhm.
erroneous to everything else, and it's just, and you can see it, and it's at that point where I usually step away from that, and I'm like, okay, it's time, because it has lost control. We lost
Mhm.
control to someone else who is now in control of this, and no, it's time to step away, because
Mhm.
that, you can like, the writing is on the wall, so to
Mhm.
speak. And for us who've been in these types of positions and seen this before, or know the playbook, we'll say, it's at those times where, like, okay, time to move on, and to distance myself, because when this does go down, just like it did there, it's, you don't want to be associated with it, because it will muddy your name as well, and that's what they
Mhm.
want. that's
Oh,
that's everything they want.
absolutely. Yeah, it's been disgusting to me what I've observed since I've gotten into the disclosure community.
Mhm.
It just is what it is. The vast majority of people that I have crossed paths with in the disclosure community are either con men, profiteers, um, feds. I mean,
Yeah.
all over the place. It's so few and far between to find somebody in this conversation that's legitimate, and it's pretty obvious right off the bat. The viewership should be very careful to anybody speaking about anything that's just simply has no facts, that they're just throwing out unsubstantiated claims, and that's the vast majority of this community. The
Yes.
first time I spoke was in Las Vegas, and the host of the event was an outfit called 5D Events.
Okay.
The producers of that group 5D is a gentleman by the name of Saeed David Farman and another gentleman that goes by the name of Eric the Healer Datimer. So right off the bat, I observed that this seemed to be a massive, like, cover, so to say. The amount of money that they were spending for a lack of return was obvious. I mean, I've seen all kinds of business operations, and when you have so much overhead and no return on that investment, I mean, who can run a money losing business every single time? So something was
Hmm.
peculiar about the funding. Both of them were generally disingenuous people in my face to face meetings with them during the event. And then following the event, I was contacted by them and told that I had to figure out how to take my information and make it support the flat earth bullcrap model. And that if I didn't acquiesce, that I would be thrown off the tour, so to say. I promptly told them to go F themselves, and that was the end of my relationship in disclosure with that con job crew. And this
Yeah.
is what I'm finding in disclosure is that it's a whole bunch of people that have nothing but mud to throw in the waters of truth, and that's their effort. And they're all working together to pat each other on the back under threat of, you either assimilate or you're
Yes.
out. And
Yeah.
I am not here to assimilate. My information stands on its own. I do not need to ride the coattails of anybody else. I do not need anybody riding my coattails. And this is the problem for me in disclosure is that I'm kind of a rogue in the disclosure community because I will not assimilate and I will point fingers and say that person's full of shit. That person's a fed. That person is a profiteer.
Hmm.
And because all of them seem to be in one of these activities, I'm persona non grata. But in reality, there's nothing any of them can do to discount any of the information that I've put forth. The only thing they can do is just try to ignore it. Which is why
Fascinating.
you don't see me on these big tours and these big conventions where all the other big names are speaking on the topic of Antarctica, like Linda Moulton Howe and Dr. Michael Sala and the rich tourist Brad Olson. These people have generally zero experience in Antarctica, but the disclosure community is endearing to them, puts them in a spotlight, puts them on a pedestal, and makes them out on as to be experts on a topic that these people don't know jack shit about.
It would be like myself going up and speaking about Antarctica. I've never been there. I've only heard people talk about it. I've only heard experiences. So I'm not an expert on it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm only regurgitating information that I've heard,
Mm-hmm.
So
That's
I
all
would
they're
never.
doing.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
well, I need to get
Yeah,
in there,
yeah.
But
That's all they're doing, and
yeah.
this is a problem. And I challenge the community to stop voting with your dollar, so to say, in this direction. The fact that
Mhm.
the community keeps funding these people is why they
Yes.
keep getting it. You can appreciate as a plumber, right? When I was doing residential service calls, you go to somebody's house and you give them a price to do a repair, and the inevitable question pops up immediately: Can you do it cheaper?
Yeah.
Right?
Always.
Well, yeah,
Always.
you can always ask for it cheaper. How come people never ask, can I give you more money to do a better job? No one ever asks that.
It's so true. It's
Right, but
so true.
I would always say to the customers, I would say, well, I'm sure somebody can do it cheaper. It won't be me. I said, but if it turns out you can find somebody to do it cheaper, which I'm sure you will, by all means. I said, but remember what you're asking for, because if people continually ask, can you get it done cheaper?
Yeah.
You're just going to reduce the value of the trade that you're asking for. And this is basically what's going on in the disclosure community is people keep paying for shit intel. So they're going to keep getting it.
It's just regurgitation of the same thing over and over again, and people are
Yeah.
paying for it to hear the same stories over
Hmm.
and over again.
Yeah.
And what is so? I was going to say, I applaud you for calling people out because I find it refreshing because too many times people will not say anything, but they'll be like, oh yeah, I don't really, that guy doesn't know anything, but to actually stand up and say, no, you're full of shit. That
I think
is
I
that
think
is
we'll
amazing.
accomplish more in the truth community by focusing our energies on targeting the liars, because there's way too many people on the banks of the river of truth throwing mud in the water. It's way harder to get the mud out of the waters of truth than it would be if we simply prevented the people from throwing the mud in. And people need to grow a set of balls and start to at least have a conversation on this. I have people that I think are full of crap. I'm sure you have people that
Yeah.
you think are full of crap. We have all these fanboys running around that have an over appreciation of the con men, and it's, because everybody's too scared to point fingers. Oh, well, that's the guy that I like, and everybody's too endeared for no reason, because in reality, I'm not seeing anybody with any proof for anything that they're saying. And
Yeah,
I think people need to be really terrified at the amount of crap that's being muddied in the waters. So we should all, I mean, at the very least, we should be open to this conversation. I might be
yes.
wrong about someone else might be wrong about someone else, but if we never address the topic, if we never put this on the table for consideration, it will remain.
I agree. Like, so my show is I talk about everything from UFOs to Bigfoot to cryptids,
Hmm.
everything.
Hmm.
And I've always said the biggest detriment to this is the hoaxers, is the liars, the grifters. You know, those ones,
Hmm.
like the skeptics. Everybody can be a skeptic. That's fine. You know, like the
Hmm.
deniers. That's fine. It's the ones who create these hoaxes and they make us lose face. You know,
Hmm.
it's exactly like them bringing in the the bad actors as well. It's identical. Like that, those two things are identical and
Hmm.
huge detriments to us. You know, to
Hmm.
us discovering the truth, and that is the key: is that we are all after the truth,
Hmm.
and it's harder to find when it's. And another saying I said is, it's I can't see the truth because it's concealed by its lies. So when we have all these people concealing the truth with lies, it is so much harder to find, and we'd lose credibility. We're just, oh, those crazy tinfoil hat wearing wackos.
Hmm.
No, we're not. We have a lot of, we do have the facts, we do have proof, but we have to wade through the pool of bullshit to
Hmm.
get that out, and all the hoaxes.
Yeah, I
So
mean,
so
I've lost count of how many people we now have in the disclosure circles that were formerly paid federal agents that were operating in counterintelligence. But now we're supposed to believe they're whistleblowers and they're no longer doing that. That that's not their job anymore. I mean, that they're not just simply retired collecting money and now
yeah.
getting another check as a consultant. I
Mm.
mean, yeah, this is ridiculous, and the fact that the general population seems to lack the discernment in this category is really mind numbing to me. It's
Yeah. And so speaking of like this kind of testimonies and whatnot, so you have testified before Congress, regarding your experiences. So what was that
te-
process?
te-
Okay, go
technically
ahead.
it was the Senate Intelligence Committee
Okay,
and Arrow.
an arrow. Okay,
Now
what?
they did tell me that
Mhm.
my information was going to be expedited to Congress and
Okay,
put in the National Archives. But just for semantics here, it was I testified at the Hart Building, which is the Senate building, and
okay,
then I testified at an undisclosed location for Arrow, AARO.
okay. What is AARO? Personally, I don't.
That
That
was
one.
that new faction that was set up to I guess you would say invest. I think it was the all all anonymous research organization or something like that. But it
Oh,
was a it
okay.
was a department of the U.S. government that was put up basically to be an open door for all folks to come in and share their information in regards to what they witnessed in the projects.
Okay, so when you brought this information forward, like you brought it about the I'm assuming directed energy weapons and
Mm-hmm.
other, other things of the sort. How did it feel to sit there and tell these truths? What was that like for you?
It felt great actually from my perspective. It was a breath of fresh air to have my information fall on the ears of folks that A, understood what I was presenting, B, respected my efforts, and then C, were extremely gracious when we had wrapped everything up. They were, I mean, in many ways, they were floored at what I was presenting to them. And I can't quite tell if they were floored because I had figured it out or floored because it was news to them. But either way, they understood what I was getting at.
Hmm.
And then the long and short of it was, after I presented them my testimony, my corroborating documentation, the conversation rapidly went to us all having an understanding that there are apparently rogue factions that have been operating in the shadows for so long that no, I mean, nobody really seems to know what to do about it. That where do
Yeah.
we even begin to reel this activity in? And I guess this is phase one of trying to reel them in, is first getting more parties aware that the activity exists.
Interesting. And so these rogue factions, when you talk about them, are they operating in the interest of the government or the interest of corporations, or what? Who, if you have any idea, who are they operating in the interest of?
Themselves would be
Okay.
the only thing we know right now is it's not in the interests of the people that got them there. That
Mm,
this now seems to be some sort of technocracy, that there's a monopoly on technology that people are profiteering from,
yeah.
and it appears to be both on and off the planet.
Okay. That opens up a whole new line of questions that I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't prepared yet for, but
Mm-hmm.
I find that really interesting. So before I get into those kind of questions, I would like to know, like, so you grew up near the Mont. So I'm just going to go back to. I'm going to take this into a different direction. So you grew up near the Montauk Project. Did you have any idea or any involvement with the Montauk Project, or have you learned anything from that? In any of your studies or experience or anything like
It
that.
it does appear that I've had some involvement, and this is part of me, what I call deciphering my experience.
Okay.
It's from my childhood, so it's very hard to make any, I guess you'd say, provable connections. There's stuff that I know, and there's stuff that I can prove. More of this stuff is in the arena of stuff that I know, and I'm trying to do due diligence to bring it to light in a way that's more provable. It's very challenging taking a time period of my life when all of the adults involved were A, lying, and B, abusing me. So it's, how do
Mhm.
you prove that now to other good intentioned adults? And all I could say is that I'm working on it. You know, um, we're starting to learn who these parties are. We're starting to learn that there's some cracks in the dam on these programs and how they were functioning with the children. And I would simply say my interest in this topic has a lot to do with the fact that it seems that these programs are still wholly operational. So I do challenge all parents out there to pay way more attention to whom you discharge your children to every single day, because there is a lot of nefarious activity going on, and you'd be really surprised where it rears its ugly head. Myself personally, when I was a child, I was involved in what's commonly referred to as the TAG program or the GATE program, which would have me withdrawn from the general population of the classroom and brought to the library in my grammar school, where we were being taught and used in the practical application of the Robert Monroe Institute's remote viewing protocols. That operation is often referred to as the Stargate program or the Stargate project. And in my connection to that, I am discovering that there appears to be MKUltra type practices being involved, and also Montauk Project associations. But these are things that I'm working on getting more clarity and evidence to, because my memories are certainly not sufficient evidence for folks, and I can get that, but it doesn't change the path that I've walked. It doesn't change the experiences that I hold. It's just very challenging to bring light to this topic. And I think that's how these programs function too, is that, for many years, I just had a whole bunch of memories that made little to no sense. And I think these programs are aware of that. There's something people refer to as dissociative identity disorder,
Yeah.
and I prefer that instead of, so they call it DID. I prefer calling it IDID, induced dissociative identity disorder, and that's when you get the same outcome but through the application of intent to induce it. Mother Nature is a very wonderful thing. And we can very rapidly learn that if you take a child and you expose them to an excess amount of trauma for which they don't have the worldly experience to deal with it properly at the time, dissociation occurs. It's
Hmm.
completely natural. It's a gift from Mother Nature to that child that you can take that trauma, you can compartmentalize it, and basically have a split in your psyche. Well, there are factions that know this, so they can simply just apply the trauma,
Yeah.
get the
Yeah.
result, create the dissociative state. And this seems to be happening with children in these programs for many, many decades.
Yeah, and when you're talking about this, like I have interviewed a man who was raised in the Luciferians with Luciferians,
Mm-hmm.
and they use the same kind of technique that you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
It's exactly what they did as well, and they
Mm-hmm.
break the child. They
Mm-hmm.
create this other identity, and it's really really sad. It's really disheartening to hear this, but he's made a break from it, and he's fighting against it on his own side now,
Mm-hmm.
which is great. But like these types of what they're doing to children is absolutely terrifying and horrifying all at the same time. And when you said we need to be more aware of who we leave our children with, I could not agree more.
Mm-hmm.
We sign our children off to go to school. They're there for 8 hours a day. Oh, and now they're going to be, oh, we don't know. Oh, your child is gifted, and we're
Mm-hmm.
gonna we're gonna put them in this program. Oh, wow, that how special is my child? Yes, please, let's
Mm-hmm.
put them in there.
Mm-hmm.
The parents are being groomed just as much as the child. And just a
Absolutely.
different aspect. Yeah,
Absolutely, 1,000%. And that's they ego stroke the kids, they ego stroke the parents, and they
yeah,
get everybody involved thinking that what they're about to do is good.
yeah,
And it's the
yeah.
opposite of that. And I mean, how many times have we seen this in the world around us? If the bad people were honest, and every time they were going to do something bad, if they got up to the podium, like, here's what we're going to do, this nefarious thing, and we're going to hurt your children, they could never accomplish it. So of course they have to be deceptive. Of course they have to be lying. So it's the old saying, beware of Trojans bearing gifts.
Yeah, yeah. I agree totally. We
Hmm.
always have to be aware of what's out there, and our children are our most precious. I don't want to say resource because that sounds like it sounds so cold, but it is like that. They are our most precious treasure. Actually,
Hmm.
we'll say.
Yeah,
You
we,
know,
we should
and
use the term treasure, but even as you put it, it's at least appropriate for giving people insight to how our enemy sees it. Our
yeah,
children are their most important resource.
you are correct. Yeah,
Our
you are.
treasure is their resource, and they are doing everything they can to take control of that treasure.
Yeah. Yeah. And we are just allowing it. We are allowing it. And at sometimes I'm sure some of these programs meant well. I'm sure some of these programs did mean well, but like I said, everything has been taken over by bad actors and
Hmm.
completely, it's been corrupted from the inside and taken in
Hmm.
another direction, like
Fair
these
enough.
good thoughts or these good things.
Hmm.
Some of them, I'm not saying
Hmm.
all of them. Like I'm sure definitely most of them have been
Yeah,
set
like
up in nefarious ways.
as an example, the Robert Monroe Institute protocols for remote viewing, their HemiSync stuff. I mean, it's not inherently evil.
Hmm.
That stuff can be. You can go pay and take the courses, and you can reap a great benefit from choosing to work with this system.
Yeah.
But when I was exposed to it as a child, it was not by a choice, and it wasn't necessarily of good intention. So it's like a gun, a hammer, a knife. It can be used for good, it can be used for bad. It all depends on the person wielding it. I just happened to be caught up by a faction that was wielding it for nefarious activities in a very deceptive way.
And that's terrible. And like you said, trying to explain that, trying to tell people your truth, with only and I don't mean this in a bad way, like your anecdotal evidence,
Mm-hmm.
it's difficult. Like what
Mm-hmm.
what evidence can you have? It's well, that sounds crazy. I think you're messed up, or I
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe you because that's too crazy. Well, it's slowly. I'm sure you're gathering evidence and trying to gather, as much information as you can to back your experiences, so that people
Hmm.
can actually see the truth for what it is.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, right off the bat, I mean, there's a lot of documentation, 25,000 some odd pages that has been released on the topic, and I get crap from people that go, well, I've never seen your name in those documents, and I've never heard them discuss working with children like you said they have. Well, for starters, that's not all the documents that exist. Just because
Yeah.
they released 25,000 pages doesn't mean that that's the entirety. They never claimed that it's the entirety. And I would suggest that they're not going to be quick to release the paperwork that discusses in great detail all the children they were abusing. Just like that plausible deniability we were discussing about the UFO topic, they certainly don't want to be, pulling the veil back on decades of child abuse. The
Exactly.
perpetrators are still alive.
Exactly. That is a whole other thing, and it's
Hmm.
like, and giving 25,000 pages is like a breadcrumb. It's a
Hmm.
breadcrumb, and people
Hmm.
are satisfied with it. It's the same thing with like Nuremberg, the Nuremberg trials. They executed some Nazis,
Hmm.
but it was only a handful. The rest,
Hmm.
what happened? Oh, Operation Paperclip. We're going to hide them and push them somewhere else. But people will be appeased because we did this here, and they will be
Hmm.
so distracted and think that, yay, we did it. We finished this.
Hmm.
And in fact, it's completely underhanded what really went on.
One of the documents that I did come across in those 25,000 pages, one of the documents was actually, and I have it available in the archives on my website at deciphering.tv, and it's called the Stargate authorization form. So this is this
Mm.
is this is legalese, right?
Yep.
This is the divining rod applied to who could be used in the program. It states very clearly that there are parameters for those that are knowingly involved in the program,
Okay.
and there are parameters for those that are unknowingly involved in the program. It gives limitations in regards to what type of prisoners could be utilized. It states with clarity how someone can be too old to be in the program,
Yeah.
but missing in any of the vernacular on the form is anything that states that there is a limit to how young an unknowing participant can be.
Wow.
So, if somebody was working in one of these programs and posed the question, are we allowed to work on children unknowingly? Somebody could read that and answer, well, it doesn't say we can't.
Yeah. The
And
gray
this
area. We operate in that
this
gray
is
area.
this is how legal documents are written, and this is how plausible deniability can be manufactured.
Yeah.
Does that
Exactly.
prove that children were being experimented on? Well, no, it doesn't prove it, but
But
it
it doesn't
proves
disprove it either.
it proves they could have been
Yeah.
because the document tolerates it.
Jeez. It's crazy. Like what we're up against and what we're dealing with is this types of, these organizations and these types of wording, because wording is huge.
Hmm.
It's very, very important. And they know what they're doing with those documents, with what they released. But you said that there was no documentation saying how young. Well, they
Hmm.
know exactly why they didn't put that in there.
Hmm.
It's that, like you said, plausible deniability, of course.
Hmm.
Now, this I know we're getting close to an end. This has gone by a lot faster than I expected. This Project Stargate. So this Operation Stargate. What exactly was the purpose of this? Was it off world, or what exactly was the purpose of the Stargate?
I think what winds up happening when you get into this topic, it becomes a conversation that is, I guess, just simply put beyond the limits of time and space. And I think
Okay.
that's exactly what they were looking to do was to learn to work with the enigma of consciousness.
Okay.
That what's going on in remote viewing is wild. I mean, when you're remote viewing, you are effectively rapidly exiting the boundaries of time and space, and you are functioning with consciousness in a way that most people would never believe functions. And it appears that the CIA and or other factions were simply looking to learn A, what is this new tool in the toolkit, and
Hmm.
B, what can we accomplish with it. And I think that's the time period for when I found myself connected to the program, was just simply the early research and development stages of these factions playing with their new tool.
Okay. Now, I have a question.
Mhm.
With remote viewing, is there a possibility of affecting, and you're saying time and space, so that means
Mhm.
that, we could view or into, like, let's just say view for now. We could view an event in the past, or we could view people in the future. Is
Yep.
there a possibility of us actually making an impact or an effect through their consciousness, through this enigma, or through the ether of sorts? Is there a way that we could cause them to write something into a movie or write something into a TV show that would give us almost like a predictive programming for something that's coming up in the future?
The easy answer is absolutely 1,000%, and they did experiments to practically apply that with great regularity with astounding results.
Wow. Okay. I interviewed someone who studies like, like strange occurrences or predictive programming in movies, and he was saying that they're tapping into the ether, like for the Simpsons, making predictions about the futures, because we all know that Simpsons has they're very spot on with some predictions with the future, and he's saying that they're tapping into the ether, this collective consciousness that is beyond space and time. And if someone is accessing that from right now, someone from now who has the knowledge of what is going on now, they're instituting that. Well, it should always be there, but they're it kind of like they're instituting it. Maybe they're viewing someone else who is then receiving that a download of sorts. If you want to call it that. I'm not a fan of saying that word, to download. I don't know.
Mhm.
For me, it doesn't. It seems
Yeah,
so.
a lot of the problem with these conversations is we have a lack of vocabulary to
Yes.
harbor good understanding in conversation. But yes, it's
Yeah.
challenging when we don't have the words for these ideas, concepts, and practical realities that we're just at a loss for. But this is, where we need to, begin creating this vocabulary and seeding this aspect of reality into the conversation of the general population, because there are folks that do know and have been functioning it for decades, and it's to our detriment, because it turns out that these are very, I guess you would say, powerful aspects of reality that are also being monopolized.
Yeah. Super interesting. I feel like I talked to you, Eric, for quite a while. Like, I find this is a very intriguing conversation. And just a couple things before we head out. Now, you said off world. What are you implying by off world when you said that?
I
I'm
like
intrigued to say
I
more.
like the term breakaway civilization.
Yeah.
So, off world, in regards to other information that's been publicly disclosed in conjunction with the information I've disclosed. Let's just consider that Gary McKinnon hacked into NASA and found a spreadsheet that listed the names of all of the off world fleet vessels, along with the names of the respective captains. So that's off-world right there. We're finding out that there's been off-world activity for quite some time. The information that I disclosed about the South Pole Station and the technologies existing there indicates that there is a capacity for faster than light communications, which would make perfectly good sense. If we had an off world fleet moving around the cosmos, we would assuredly need at least one way to communicate with them. And I believe that I provided information to indicate that I found at least two methods for long range communications into the cosmos.
Wow.
And this is the information that I provided to the Senate Intelligence Committee, that I provided to Arrow, that was very well received. And it seems to be the information that the general disclosure community wants nothing to do with.
Jeez. We always have to be open to ideas, even if they upset our beliefs. We always must be
Mm-hmm.
ready to change, and and
Mm-hmm.
and, and that I think is really really important. And one last question,
Mm-hmm.
before we call it a night here, Eric. In Antarctica, a lot of people have questions about other civilizations within Antarctica. Just past the ice wall, or underneath the Arctic ice, or something along that line. Were you ever privy to anything like that? Did you ever see anything, or did you read anything about that in any of those journals that were kept all there in Antarctica?
I did not read anything or know anything in specific to there being, other species or other things in there. I caution the people out there to not believe any of the crap that they heard on it. It's not that I'm opposed to the idea. I do believe all possibility exists always, but it seems that the people that are running these conversations right now, I feel, are doing so with no substantial information. Sounds
Okay.
cool. Great science fiction story. Is it possible? Absolutely. But the information that they're putting out there, I actually believe is just a distraction to control the narrative, to prevent the general population from paying attention to the actionable, verifiable information that I've presented.
Fantastic. Actionable, verifiable information, I think, is what we should all be, striving for. That's something that we should all be looking for. Yeah, speculation. I think we do need to have ideas. We do need to have these, you know, possible speculations of
Hmm.
things. But once we're presented with evidence that that maybe contradicts that, we
Hmm.
have to be open to say no. Okay, let's move
Absolutely.
on. And what I feel though, and this is what I've learned on this journey, is that sometimes it's a death of yourself, a part of yourself that has this belief, and you have to be willing to let that part of you die so you can be reborn and to grow more, because
Hmm.
that is very very imperative.
I think of it this way: is it's like I imagine, like, let's say you're walking down the street, right, and all of a sudden somebody walks up to you and puts a gun in your face. You now have actionable intelligence that you're in danger, right? Now, if
Yes.
somebody came running from around the corner and was like, "Oh my God, Rye, did you know there is a guy around the corner with a knife?" You have to be able to prioritize. In one moment, you have real, actionable intelligence in your face,
Yeah.
and now you have somebody else trying to distract you from the actionable intelligence by speculating another thing that's around the corner that's been unverified. And that's what's going on in disclosure community right now, is that I am letting people know that there's the proverbial gun to your face, and I keep getting these distractors that are showing up in the conversation discussing the potential knife.
Hmm. I understand. Yeah. So these distractors are all over. We got to be aware of them all. Well, Eric, I want to say thank you so much for spending the time here and you know letting us in on everything that's been going on and all your actions, all your discoveries as well. I applaud you for standing up and and yelling to the world your truth, and I appreciate that. So I just want to say thank you. And one last time, tell them where they can find you. I think decipheringtv.com, or can you
Deciphering.tv is my website,
there we
and I'm
go.
doing my best to get the truth out there. It's my website, so it's censorship free, and people may be able to slow my roll, but they're not going to stop me. And the more people that can help me get this information out by going to the website and simply supporting its existence is going to help the world, hopefully.
I can appreciate that. And so everyone who's listening and watching, go check out Eric's website and help spread the truth, because that's what we're here for, is spreading the truth and finding the truth. Eric, I want to say thank you again so much for coming out tonight.
Thank you, Rye. I appreciate your time and effort.
All right, everyone, I want to say thank you so much for joining us tonight. We had Eric with amazing information. And like you said, he is bringing this actionable evidence, verifiable evidence to you. So go check out his website, you know, and And again, you are the arbiter, you are the gatekeeper for your own truth and your own beliefs. So take that all information in, take it all in, but look into it. Don't just accept it for face value. Look further into it. He is saying he has, these CIA documents are being released. Yeah, there's only 25,000 pages. That sounds like a lot. But when you get the grand scheme of things, that might not be very much. But take it in and, look into it yourself. Always search for the truth. And it is okay to accept that part of you is going to die. Let that part of you die that believes in something that is not true anymore. It was like a death of self when I had to acknowledge some certain truths. There was some certain truths that I had to come to, and it was a death of this identity that I had created. I had to let it go. I had to be reborn. And it's a continuous cycle. It's like this continuous cycle of dying and rebirth, dying and rebirth. And every time you're reborn, you grow more. You become wiser. You become stronger. And with that, I want to tell everybody, keep your curiosity wandering, keep the light lit, and always find your way home. I look forward to our next adventure together as we navigate the mysteries that lie ahead. Until our paths cross again, keep your curiosity wandering, keep the light lit, and always find your way home.